Good morning. Another exciting day in Brownsville, Texas. It's in a series of many exciting days this past year. This microphone, all right, there we go. It's been a series of many exciting days this year, despite what we've been through over the past year and a half. Brownsville has continued to move, and we've continued to move very quickly. And if you haven't been paying attention over the last year plus, we've been really focusing on aerospace and focusing on the space industry, which Morgan Stanley says is going to be $1 trillion industry by the year 2040. So certainly Brownsville sees an opportunity there with our launch capability. We're one of the few places in the United States that actually has launch capability, but we see an opportunity there for all sorts of other companies in the aerospace industry. So Brownsville's been working extremely hard to try and recruit those companies, and today's another day where we get to make an exciting announcement. And for me, it's something that we've really been working hard over quite some time. Helen's been doing a fantastic job. You're gonna get to meet Brant here in a little bit. And Brant's been a vital partner for us here at the City of Brownsville, not just for his own companies and his own interests, but also bringing us a lot of leads and a lot of other companies that are interested in relocating or coming to Brownsville. So today, we are gonna be announcing 9.8 Capital, and which is a company. I'll let Brant talk more about that, but it seems like I said, we have launch capability. We have some other companies that are coming, doing some other things, but the one key component that's really been missing when we talk about assets and we talk about what the City of Brownsville has to offer, the missing piece has been capital. And today we're going to hear why this is so important for us. We have a company that's going to be located in Brownsville that actually fills the capital component of the space industry and the startup industry in particular. We also have another company that Brant's going to talk about called the Hatchery. And I'm particularly excited about the Hatchery because it kind of fits with what we've been doing in Brownsville, which is really trying to foster a startup ecosystem and trying to get companies to start here, because if we see that if they start here, they stay here. And that's something that we're really excited about. We have other community partners such as Texas Southwest College that we've been talking to that's filling the gap and really helping us on the workforce side to make sure that we're ready for the jobs that are coming. And I can't say enough good things about our community college, and excited to hear a little bit more from Brant. So as mayor, again, just getting a great excitement to be here and to just talk about what's happening in Brownsville and all the things that are coming. Today it's Brant's Day and it's 9.8 Capital and the Hatchery's Day, so I'll let, I believe Helen is next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And now I'd like to introduce Ms. Helen Ramirez, our Executive Director of GBIC.
I know we normally do not like Mondays, but when you have good energy and a new company to announce, those are the best Mondays of the week. So I'm very excited. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to ruin it, but I want to emphasize that the mission of the City of Brownsville City Commission, they have a strategic vision, and one of their main pillars is economic development. So the mayor's words demonstrate that emphasis on creating a sustainable economy for our current and future generations. At the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation, our mission is also to bring new companies, to grow them, to welcome new and to create new companies in Brownsville, Texas. That's the way we're going to diversify our jobs and actually encourage our students to stay here, whether they are coming from or graduating from TSC or University of Texas at Rio Grande Valley, that they have the opportunity to stay, to grow there, to create a family, and really to live here and have a wonderful quality of life. 9.8 Company Capital is not only about jobs, but you're going to see it's a whole ecosystem of what they're creating here in Brownsville. They're really looking at the pathway to success for the hatchery or new jobs, and also, what happens, who do they hire? Who do they hire that are local? So you're gonna really see how they touch upon different points such as education, business, entrepreneurship, and new space economy. When we grow our local ecosystem and space, that's what we've been doing. Whether it's supporting SpaceX and their growth, which is it's incredible since 2019 what they've grown to date and what they'll be growing with their next launch. From them to space ventures, expanding frontiers, space channels, and other supply chain and distribution companies that are working with many of these companies. Our job is to make it easy for them to be here, to create that ecosystem so they can be sustainable and be here a long time, and also to be able to hire local. So I want these companies to stay in Texas, to come to Brownsville, and not really consider Florida or California or Colorado. This is the place to be. Be bold, be Brownsville. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. And now, without further ado, we'll introduce our rock star, Brant Arseneau from 9.8 Capital. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Brownsville. I was really excited to get here last night. The last time I was here was, I think, 38, 39 degrees Celsius. So I got off the plane last night. It was, I think, 26, and it was so nice. But there's many, many reasons I'm coming to Brownsville. And I'll make that kind of announcement, which is just a little further explanation that Mayor Mendez said. But I want to tell you why I got here, how I got here, and why Brownsville is so exciting to me. And I'll try not to take too long, but the journey is 30 years. So hopefully I can boil that down to 3 minutes. And that's when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. And I grew up on the east coast of Canada. My two grandfathers were lobster fishermen. I didn't have a lot of support and people that understood what I wanted to be. They thought, oh, there's the weird one, he wants to be an astronaut. And eventually I found out, hey, you have to do a PhD or be a fighter pilot to be an astronaut. And in Canada, we only have 4 fighter jets. So that kind of was rolled out. And I said, well, I'll engineer my education to be an astronaut. And I did electrical engineering in the 80s. I did my PhD research in the 90s in neural networks. And at the end of it, I applied to be an astronaut. And I got rejected, like 99.9%. And I went from Scotland down to London. And that was a period in the 90s that the banks were hiring mathematicians and physicists to do electronic trading and calculate risk in a more mathematical way called quants. And I started to get into that business, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. And I did 30 years on Wall Street with JP Morgan, or around 27 years. I became an expert in electronic trading and risk, and absolutely loved it. And just recently, last 3 or 4 years, I started realizing a lot of space companies were happening. And I was actually out in California, and I thought it was just Elon, Jeff, and Richard. And I found out there was hundreds of space companies. So I reached out to a fellow Canadian, Chris Hadfield, who's one of our celebrated astronauts. And I said, Chris, is it true that there's lots of space companies? He said, there's hundreds. And that very day, I said, I'm gonna get in the space industry. And the advice that came back to me was, hey, we don't want you to build a rocket. You probably can't do it as well as Elon anyway. What we need in the space industry is capital, finance, and business development. A lot of these engineers and scientists don't have the experience. So I was a little disappointed because I wanted to build a rocket or a nuclear reactor. But they told me to start building capital products, which kind of sunk in. And my wife said, well, if you can't be Elon, maybe you could be the JP Morgan of space, which I thought I liked the sound of that. And if I could just do a little bit, it would be great. So that set me on a path of designing an ecosystem of finance and capital products to help the space industry. And what happens in emerging markets is the capital markets that support that emerging market lags behind the market. There's not a lot of capital for new industries that people don't understand. Wall Street doesn't understand it. Big alternative investment managers don't understand it. So it takes a little time. So I built this blueprint of supporting companies from early stage to late stage, with private equity to public credit, from investment capital to working capital. So I have an ecosystem of companies. And then what I did, and this is where Brownsville comes in, I overlaid that product strategy with a geographic strategy. I said, okay, where do we want to be in the world? Because we need to be near our clients, either near our clients or near our investors. And if you think about just North America for a second, New York City is great for raising capital. Great for high-end restaurants. But it's not great for deploying capital to space companies. It's just not. California is pretty good for raising capital and pretty good for deploying capital. Texas is very good. We have 70 years of space heritage within Texas. It's very good for deploying capital, not bad for raising capital. So we kind of had our North America location strategy kind of baked. And then, I don't know what happened, but someone told me about Brownsville, and it was a person related to Elon, and he said Brownsville is going to be important. So I made my first trip probably a year ago, and the buzz I felt when I got here, and I'm sitting in a hotel with an electrician from Calgary, Canada, a plumber from Australia, I forget what they call them, but the guys that hang off the rope off the side, from I think Austria, and the buzz in the hotel was just fantastic. And I felt it, every time I came back, I felt it surging. And it reminded me, in the 90s at JP Morgan, I built a piece of software that we sold to a company out in Silicon Valley, and I was lucky enough to go visit this company several times. And that was the 90s, and the dot-com bubble was starting to churn, and excitement, and there was a company that said, hey Brant, why don't you stay in the Valley and work here? And I said, no, I gotta go back to Wall Street. And I regret that a little bit my whole life, and I feel that about Brownsville, and I don't want to miss that opportunity to be here when Brownsville becomes the Silicon Valley of space. So we chose this as a very, very important part of our ecosystem. And to further that, we think about, this is in a global industry, so we think about outside of North America as well. And we think about, we have to be in Europe, we have to be in the Middle East, and we have to be in Asia. I think most people know a country in Asia that we need to think about, but we don't want to really talk about it yet because it's too complex. Europe, so we put that on hold. Europe is, from a regulatory framework, from financial regulatory, there's too many different regimes, so that's complicated. The Middle East is very interesting, and I've been to Dubai several times, and I feel a similar buzz in Dubai and Saudi. But I can tell you, I was just there last week, when I came back to Brownsville last night, the excitement and the buzz is even more overwhelming than other parts of the world. So that's why I'm here today. And in finance, I've always felt that you can't do everything from New York City or London. You have to be close to your clients. You have to be close to your capital. And I would like to be the first finance person to be in Brownsville when this becomes a Silicon Valley of space. We can say, hey, remember, we went there first. Just like in the 60s and 70s, the Sand Hill Road, you probably know all the different VCs around the Sand Hill Road in California. We want to be that here in Brownsville. So we're announcing that we're putting a portion of our operations here in Brownsville. And one of the companies, so right now we have 4 companies. One is called 10MK, which is 10 million degrees Kelvin, which is the temperature stars are hatched within the nebula. That's our hatchery that the mayor referred to. So we're gonna hatch brand new companies. And the next company is Space Ventures, which is a company that does public raising for companies. The third company is Gravity, which I'm in the process of raising funds for now. It's targeted to be a $250 million venture fund. And then the last one is 9.8, which is the quarterback, which I said in Dubai last week and no one got it, but you guys do. It's the quarterback kind of managing the group and the relationships. And the last thing we want to do, the hatchery is there to kind of spawn innovation and create companies so the rest of the ecosystem can fund them. And then the other part of this is workforce development. Where are the people, where is the skill set coming from? Right, because there's a lack of skill set in this industry. So the first thing we did is we're thinking about, not thinking about, we're going to do it, is quite a large scholarship program where we're going to promote, on the professional side, a MBA program for a space MBA. So we'd like to give it to the University of Texas and the University of Arizona and possibly something in Dubai and create that workforce and focus on equality and diversity, trying to get more women into this industry, getting more people of color, people of economically disadvantaged, because a lot of MBA programs are quite expensive. And then the trade, this is a unique industry that requires just as much trade. Like I said, all those wonderful electricians and plumbers, we need that group of people with our engineers and our scientists. So you can see it's a whole ecosystem that is a big flywheel of success. And the group of people that I'm doing it with, all my operating partners, we're not necessarily doing it because we love finance. We're doing it because we feel the value of space is incredible. And that's the biggest question I always get. What's the value of space? And you know, the old question was GPS, and it's kind of tiring and boring. But now if you think about what space is doing for us, there's many, many constellations up there looking at Earth, observing Earth, detecting wildfires before they happen, or slightly after they happen so we can get them stopped. Detecting oil spills as they happen and avoiding that disaster. Detecting human trafficking in the South Sudan and stopping that from happening. So there's massive value just with looking at Earth. Eventually we're going to move some of the Earth-hurting industries like power generation into space, manufacturing into space. And one thing I'll remind everybody, just because space is big, we can't start polluting space either. So we need to kind of think about that. So we're very, very excited. Every time I come here, I get excited about the energy and the commitment from the city and the associated ecosystem. And we're going to be here a long time. So thanks, and hopefully we'll speak to all of you. Is there questions now? Or?
Thank you, Mr. Arseneau. There's, the workforce development is crucial, and I'd also like to acknowledge President of the Texas Southmost College, Dr. Rodriguez, and Executive Director of TSC Workforce Development, Mr. Simon. Thank you for being here today. And without further ado, we'll open the floor to our media for questions. Please make sure you're